Good evening. My name is Sean Fago, and I have a question for you in the audience. How many of you here today notice every time you go to the store, prices seem to be higher and higher? Every dollar that you make seems to purchase less and less. According to Thorsten Polite of the Mises Institution, since 1972, the dollar has lost 84% of its value. $1 in 1972 is equivalent in purchasing power to $6 in 2018, a difference of $5 in just over 46 years. Gold, on the other hand, has gained a purchasing power of 394% in that same period. Despite this fact, gold and other hard commodity options are illegal for payment of debts in the United States. My goal today is to help you see that the status quo is not always the right policy to take, and to get your gears turning on the thought of repealing legal tender laws and allowing for competing currencies to the US dollar in the form of gold and silver, which will help bring economic stability to prices and purchasing power. Many of you might be asking what is legal tender, and subsequently legal tender laws. Legal tender is any official medium of payment recognized by law that can be used to extinguish a public or private debt or meet a financial obligation. Legal tender laws, according to Frederick Hayek, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, are a survival of the medieval idea that it is the government that somehow confers value on money it otherwise would not possess. And this, in turn, is true only to the very limited extent that government can force us to accept whatever it wishes in place of what we have contracted for. So in other words, what he is saying is that legal tender laws represent the idea that we need the government to tell us what is money and what its value should be. As I said previously, the US dollar is currently the only option that we as citizens have to legally pay off all debts in the United States. Gold and other commodities are only viewed as investment options. This means that they are susceptible to capital gains taxes because they are just seen as a way of increasing your investment portfolio. The next question that we might ask is, why should competing currencies be allowed in the United States, and how would they work? Today, how our system is set up, the Federal Reserve Bank has a monopoly over the money supply, and it is responsible for the inflation incurred on the US dollar. That is because a basic law of economics states that the more something is, the less value that it holds, and this is true with the money supply. Competition would allow for stronger currencies because it would not be wise for issuers to inflate or increase the amount of their supply of currency. People would be free to choose which currency they wish to use, creating economic freedom. To sum up this idea, Ludwig von Mises says, and I quote, "I think it is entirely possible for private enterprise to issue a token money which the public will learn to expect to preserve its value, provided both the issuer and the public understand that the demand for this money will depend on the issuer being forced to keep its value constant, because if he did not do so, the people would at once cease to use his money and shift to some other kind." There have been many instances of gold and other precious commodities in the history of the world that could be used to show their stabilizing effect. Countries have long had hard money and used it as a means of controlling inflationary periods in their economies. They have accomplished this by stopping the production of free coinage and stopping the increase in the availability of the gold and silver coins. This has happened in Austria, Sweden, and India during British colonial rule just in the last century and a half. As we have seen, legal tender laws have destroyed economic freedom in the United States by creating a government monopoly on the money supply. It would be in the best interest to allow for competing currencies to maximize purchasing power. Every day we use money to purchase goods and services that are important to us. We should have the opportunity to pay for them in terms that we make with others in the contracts that we make. Repealing legal tender laws allow for freedom and liberty to reign once again in our economic choices.